Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the invitation to be here.
Good afternoon to you. All right. It's a great pleasure for me to have two of the most important and impactful violence prevention agents in our community here today. For the benefit of the audience, my name is Etiony Aldarondo. I'm the Executive Director of the Mesa Institute for Violence Prevention and Treatment. And today I have the pleasure of having with us the Honorable Katherine Fernandez-Rundle, our state attorney, as well as Ms. Ivon Mesa, Miami-Dade Bureau Chief of Violence Prevention and Intervention Services, and many other titles that follow her distinguished career here in the field of violence prevention. I had asked him to come and talk to us, in part because of increasing divergent information across the nation about the impact of the COVID-19 on the occurrence of intimate partner violence in particular and violence in general, as well as the services that are being provided for victims during this time. And I thought that the two of them together could really help us understand what's happening in our region and the impact of COVID so far, and what are they doing as we move forward. And Honorable State Attorney, if we can start with you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate being part of this. I'm such a pleasure to be with my colleague, Ivon Mesa. And Doctor, I want to thank you and the Melissa Institute for really your years of service. They've been a real change agent in this respect in terms of awareness and education. And I think that I was on the original founding board with Susan Keeley and the Altman's family when the tragedy occurred to their daughter. So you've been in the mix of this. Melissa Institute is to be congratulated for just volumes of work that you have done, not only in awareness, but also in training. We attend a lot of your trainings and we participate in your trainings. So thank you for all your work. And thank you for allowing us to bring this important message. We know as professionals in this field that whenever there's a crisis in anywhere, in communities throughout America, probably throughout the globe, that there tends to be a spike in intimate violence, family violence, partner violence, and also children, who we always say are the direct and indirect victims of family violence. And so we know this after hurricanes that we have a great deal here in South Florida. We know this from 9/11 and other things that have occurred in our community. And so we, meaning myself and law enforcement and police and all of our service providers and the Ivon Mesas of the world with the shelters and all the services they provide, we were really getting ready for an uptick. And we wanted to make sure that we would be ready. But unfortunately, we were surprised by a couple of features that we hadn't seen before when COVID hit. And they are very specific to COVID-19. And what I mean by that, I'll explain in a second. Let me just share, if I may, some statistics that I always feel like paints a picture. So I want to kind of start with felonies and misdemeanors. So you may know that the state attorney's office in Dade County, we're responsible for the filing of cases and arrests in about 35 different police departments in this big community. And so all of those misdemeanor, simple battery cases happening in family violence and domestic partners, and then the felonies, where it's more aggravated, more serious. We handle those cases. We screen those cases. The police come to us. We reach out to the victim, by the way, in a variety of different ways. One of the things we did, Doctor, years ago, and those that are listening, and Ivon knows this, is we started something called the MOVES Project. And that actually is a mobile unit that the police will call our office, and we would go out to the community, go out to the victims, and actually do a couple of things. Take statements, take photographs, and give them a hard copy of all their services that are available to them in the community. And the concept behind that was oftentimes the police didn't have the time, or they would have to leave and go on to the next call they got. And oftentimes, you know, people aren't always comfortable talking to someone in uniform. Sometimes they're a little more comfortable talking to someone who's talking about different services, et cetera. So we have that in place. And we also have, so once an arrest is made, we also have something called DART, which is an immediate response to a person, to the victim, telling them that, you know, the person's been arrested, it's coming up in court, here's the status, and so on and so forth. So we really try to make a bond with those victims and keep them with us. So let me just share with you sort of a pattern. So if we look at, I'm comparing January 2019 through May 2019 to January 2020, and COVID, as you know, hit around February, March, to May 2020, which just ended. So we can see between January of last year, January this year, 16% decrease. You can see from March of last year to March of this year, an 18% decrease. Now we're in the thick of COVID, and in April, April of 2019 to 2020, we see a 27% decrease. And then it looked a little bit better for last month. So it's interesting. So when COVID seems to be getting a little bit less of a danger in the minds of people, there seems to be an increase going back up. So that we're just making theories out of these statistics. Let me give you another one that I think is also telling. I'm sure most of those that are watching this, I know you know this, that we have courts that issue, and in fact, Ivon's group, they're the ones that prepare the protections for injunctions. And I don't have that. And I don't have it right here. Yes, but I'm going to get them for you. But what was interesting was when I saw the arrest going down, I immediately called my partners. Ivon Mesa with the county, she's the one really that's so responsible for this whole network of services and shelters. And I called the chief judge of our domestic violence court. We have a specialized court that will handle stay-away orders, both felonies, and protection orders for either misdemeanors or felonies, depending on what the needs are. One other thing that we're kind of different in is when someone's arrested, they do not immediately bond out like you might on some other cases. You must go in front of a judge. And the whole concept there is that judge can then listen to what is happening in that household before that judge makes any kind of release decision or conditions. And so I spoke with the chief judge of that division, and she was concerned as well that there seemed to be a decrease in the number of protection orders, and Ivon and I spoke about it, as I said, as well. And so some of the things that I learned going through this, in speaking with them both as these incredible professionals is, and the other thing, I'm sorry, was a capacity of the shelters had not increased as we had hoped and expected it to. So when you put those factors together, it told us that there might be an issue. And Ivon came up with some very good insights that actually some of the women were sharing with those that were contacting them. Number one, we think that there was an element that they didn't want to call the police for perhaps a couple of reasons. One, remember, this is a stay-at-home moment. We are told by all of our authorities and officials, and apparently rightfully so, according to the infectious disease doctors, stay at home. So we wondered if maybe they're staying at home and now are they trapped at home? And so we realized that if you're in that household and your abuser is there, it's very difficult to feel free to make that phone call without him or she, depending on the abuser, knowing that. So that was a real concern to us. Number two, we were told that, a lot of the victims were afraid who was going to come to their door. They weren't sure if they really wanted somebody to breach into their tent, so to speak, and perhaps bring the disease with them. And so, you know, that again made a choice. Do I choose between the abuser or do I choose between COVID? And the other thing was, and this is a little more subtle, but psychologically, if you're the victim and your children are home, do you want to be the one that called the police show up at your door, and the police are fantastic, that's not the issue. They show up at your door, and now there's this tension, and there's strife between mommy and daddy, and maybe they take daddy away. And then if he goes away, he's gonna come back maybe. So when he comes back, what am I letting back into the tent? So there were those kinds of considerations that we hadn't really anticipated. And then Ivon brought up a really good point. So the incidents, when you ask the police, or the arrests are down, why is that? But the incidents were up. What that means is that they'll get a call and maybe they're starting to initiate something, and they'll say, never mind, it's okay, never mind. Or the police go to the household and they don't want to go any further. So that began to really support a theory, a hypothesis, that women didn't want to go to a shelter. And that perhaps, and even more than perhaps, I think they were articulating this actually to Ivon and her folks at CDAC. You know, I don't want to go and take my children to a shelter that may put me and my family at risk to COVID. And so we realized then that we, you know, a lot of them think it's communal living, and Ivon's going to go through all of this, that it's that, you know, that they were not CDC compliant. And so that began, we realized that we were really, again, expecting these victims, potential victims, to make a choice between COVID and their safety. Right. And so one of the things, and in closing, I will also say, there's a side note issue on children, because we've been very concerned also that normally when children go to school, go to day camp, daycare, you have a whole lot of different eyes looking out for potential child abuse. But, you know, we don't have those eyes now. So we're starting to see a little uptick by children themselves reporting abuse. So with that, armed with those kinds of concerns, Ivon and I reached out to Commissioner Rebecca Sosa, who's been working with Ivon and this community and I on domestic violence issues for years, violence against women and children. And we had a long discussion about it one weekend, and we came up with this concept that we needed to do a campaign. We needed to get the awareness out. We needed to write these myths and empower women to feel free and not stay at home and feel trapped. And so that's where we're going to start this campaign. I'm so happy, Doctor, that you and the Melissa Institute reached out to us and that we're able to have the power of your voice and the reach of your breath to give life, even further life, to this very important message.
We're delighted to be part of this and support your efforts and Ivon's efforts in any way that we can, as well as our communities. One question for you in terms of clarification. So we do have the data. There's no clear evidence of a spike on violence. Well, we do have evidence that women are not seeking services.
You know, I'm sorry. That's always one of the questions, right? So if reporting is up, does that mean the incidence of violence, let's say, is up? I never really know the answer to that. Sometimes I feel like it's good that they're reporting it, right? I've been a real advocate for report. So over the years, and Ivon probably has her answer, but when people would ask me, oh, there's a real spike up in domestic violence, I like to think it's because the awareness is working and that people aren't suffering in silence and they are reporting it. So I don't know, other than I can only suspect, based on what the director of Miami-Dade told me, police department told me, that the incidents were up a little bit, okay, but the reporting and the arrests were not.
Okay. All right. So Ivon, in terms then of the implications of all of this for the provision of services for victims of violence, for women in particular, and children. How has that gone? What impact it has had on the county?
Okay, thank you. Dr. Aldarondo, I would like to first thank you for the invitation. Just like our state attorney, I feel very fortunate that we have this opportunity to raise more awareness. And as I sit here and listen, I feel very fortunate that in Miami-Dade County, we have a state attorney that takes this matter to her heart, that it's the biggest leader that we can possibly have in our jurisdiction for victims of domestic violence. So I was really enjoying her presentation because, again, you can see the passion, you can see the commitment, and that is what we need in a leader such as herself. I feel very fortunate to have her leadership in our jurisdiction and yours, because again, like Melissa, Melissa Institute is well known and is very, very well known for all the work on the amazing education that you guys have provided to our community for years. So, so going into your question, Dr. Aldarondo, I agree with everything that our state attorney mentioned before. I believe that this right now, it's a moment of crisis in which we are not perhaps 100% sure of the implications in the future of the statistics that may come up in the future. But my interpretation of what's occurring is exactly what she described before. I feel that one of the biggest issues that we have been dealing with is fear. Fear not only of the abuse that is taking place, which is always there, but fear of the pandemic, fear of being in a situation where, like so very well Katherine Fernandez explained, now you have, as a mother, you have that fear that what is better? Do I stay at home? Do I continue to endure the abuse, whether it's emotional, physical, sexual, whatever type of abuse a victim may be enduring? Or do I take off from my homes, I abandon my home, and I take my children into a complete unknown facility where there is going to be potentially communal living, and therefore I am increasing the possibility of my family to get infected with the virus. And we understand that's a very, very normal reaction. I think I would have exactly the same reaction if I was in that situation. But what I would like to emphasize during this opportunity is the fact that Miami-Dade County has taken all possible precaution. We have implemented a variety of measures to ensure the safety of our clients. And if I may, I would like to explain to you some of them. We in Miami-Dade County have 3 locations, which are the shelter that we have is called Safe Space. And we have 3 locations, one in the south, one in the north, and one in the central area. So 2 of these shelters are communal living shelters, and one of them is non-communal. So in the non-communal one, every family has a separate apartment that they live in. So for the non-communal shelter, as you can imagine, Dr. Aldarondo, the fear was less, because again, now you're walking into your own apartment, just like if you lived in a complex, in a building in any complex. So there you are dealing with your own kitchen, you have your own environment. And I think that makes a difference at least for the perception of the victims that are out there seeking the help. So then with regard to our communal living facilities, we have made different implementations, such as, for example, before we used to distribute the bedrooms by the number of beds. After COVID-19, we began to look at that differently. And we began to look at every room as a unit, regardless of how many bed capacity was available within each room. So now, for example, if we have a bedroom that has the capacity for 5 or 6 beds, but we have a family occupying that facility that is maybe the size of 4, we will consider that to be full to capacity. That bedroom will be full to capacity because it will be utilized by a family only at a time. That measure made a big difference because now families were not living in the same, we were not mixing families. Every family had their separate bedroom where they were able to stay. We also implemented a lot of other things, such as, for example, we have hand sanitizing policies that we follow now, which we never did before. Every person that enters into our facility has to go through the hand sanitizing station, so to make sure that either both employees and participants in our programs are both required to pass by the hand sanitizing station and complete that process. Number two, actually number three, we were able to bring refrigerators into each of those bedrooms that I mentioned before. We brought TVs, we brought microwaves into each room, so that, for example, in the past, prior to COVID-19, we had common areas where people will get together to do their cooking, where they will get together to watch TV. And so the centers were set up in that way, where if you wanted to watch TV, you had to go into sort of a living room area, or, that we have in the shelters, so that they would be able to watch TV. Now that has changed. And they are able to have their own TVs in their own room. They're able to have their own, refrigerators within their rooms, their own microwaves, and we have tablets for the kids and for the participants that would like to get onto the internet without having to go again into an area that we have designated for that purpose. So we looked at the operations, Dr. Aldarondo, and we looked at it from a very analytical perspective, looking at how can we in any way diminish the possibility of any spread of the virus. And I think that along with that, and also I have to say that our state attorney has created several PSAs. She has gone into many different venues, such as webinars and presentations on TV and radio. And like her, other individuals in our community, we have also taken that very serious of educating the community, letting the community know that if you walk into a shelter, this is what you can expect. I think that if the community doesn't know, then that creates more fear. But if they understand the measures that have been taken, if they can realize, for example, something else that we implemented, Dr. Aldarondo, was we take temperature. As you enter upon the facility, we have thermometers now, which we never did. And so we're taking every person that walks in's temperature to make sure that if we have an individual who is exhibiting a fever, which is such a characteristic symptom of the virus, that we would immediately handle that situation different. At every shelter, we have an isolation room. That's another measure that we put into place, so that if we have a client that exhibits the symptoms, that we're able to isolate that family and therefore change certain things within the facility, so that again we eliminate as much as possible any possible spread of the virus.
So this is to use a word that is thrown around frequently. It is your shelters now, or our shelters are CDC compliant, and then some, right there.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. I have to tell you that as you are aware of, because you were one of the first partners that we had at the Coordinated Victims Assistance Center, this pandemic has also affected the way that we function at CEDA. Because again, we encountered the same situation. Victims coming into the center felt not at ease about coming into a waiting room where you have 10 women, or where we used to, have a lot of populations sitting down in that waiting room. So we have now distributed the seating arrangement in such a way where we don't have more than 3 ladies at any given time. And there's actually more than 6 feet, they're more than 6 feet apart from each other. We also implemented Zoom, a lot of Zoom services, virtual services, including the services that we provide for victims filing for a protective order. Now we have been able, thanks to the cooperation of, a series of individuals, we have been able to do these injunctions for protections virtually. So we're also working very closely with the 11th Judicial Circuit, the Domestic Violence Division, because we are serving as a partner to the court system, so that a victim that doesn't have a computer, a victim that doesn't have access to Zoom. Now all of the hearings are taking place via Zoom. So now CEVA has become, in that sense, a provider of that particular service. We're able to accommodate our clients that need to appear in court. They come to CEVA, and we're able to do that for them from CEVA.
The campaign includes both the reality about what is happening as well as the service component, right?
Yes.
Yep.
In fact, the service component that Ivon, by the way, you're brilliant, Ivon, how you touched all those important pieces.
Thank you very much.
You changed the way if the world changes, we can't be static, we have to change with it, and you've really done that. But yes, doctor, that is the concept, and that's why this is part of it, because we want to go out there and let them know, even though I told you the numbers are down a tick, they're still high. I mean, we're still open for business. And, even though I told you the decreases from January through April, we had almost 2,500 criminal cases filed. So, or at least arrests. So, I don't want to give the impression that we're closed for business. We're not. We are doing things differently, like Ivon said. We had to pivot completely. Remember I mentioned the mobile unit. Well, the mobile unit isn't going out there right now. We're doing everything virtually. Ivon shared a story with me that I thought it was so compelling, that the women would show up at CDAC and they would stay in their cars, and she would have somebody run downstairs out to the cars to actually get them to fill out some of the paperwork on a computer, just to kind of keep distance. So we've been trying to morph and transform the way we provide services, but also to give confidence. Ivon started this by saying a lot of these women are trapped in fear. They're already in fear. And then you have these extra layers of fear. So that's really the point of this campaign. Let them know we're open for business. The police are responding. The courts are issuing injunctions. CVAC, the Complete Victim Services Assistance Center is open. It's operational. It's CDC compliant. It's sensitive. It understands all these issues. The shelters are available. I think we still have capacity, right, Ivon? Is there still?
Yes, we do.
Okay. So the shelters are open. In fact, they just took over another shelter. So that's the message. Come forward. Don't stay home and feel trapped. And sometimes I'm going to leave you with this parting thought. Our experience has been as many times women, and I say women because 90+% of them are females, the victims. But they sometimes they just suffer through it. They become stoic. They do it for their children. They do it because of their cultural values, keep the family together, whatever it may be, that they feel, they want to stay in the same school district, they have their friends, all that kind of stuff. So we try to tell them, also pets. There are shelters that are services for families, women, children, and their pets. We try to tell them, if you won't do it for yourself, do it for your children, because all of the studies show that children do what they see. And so they start to role play later in life, either the abuser or the abused. So you're maintaining that intergenerational cycle of violence. So that I think is an important message for women victims. One other thing, your immigration status, the system doesn't care about that. All we care about is your safety, your well-being, those are your children, and getting you back onto a track of life. Maybe sometimes just getting the abuser, anger management. Oftentimes there's an underlying substance abuse issue. And so when they're on a substance, their impulses are not under check, and they act out. And so we can deal with that as well.
Well, let me on behalf of the Melissa Institute and our communities, if I may speak for them, thank you both for being so thoughtful and for taking us a moment of crisis and turn into an opportunity to do innovative things for the folks that need our services. I want to encourage you, as you think about the campaign and the work that you're all doing, to also look at the resources that we have created at the Institute during the pandemic to bolster resilience, to reduce levels of stress, and to really equip parents and women and children with the individual tools that they need to deal with that fear, precisely that fear that you talked about, Ivon, in a healthy way. Because I think there are different parts of the puzzle, and I think it moved me to know that perhaps what we've done is also in line with what you're doing, and it will be helping a lot of families too. So thank you very much. I think a lot of people are going to really benefit from what you all have shared, and I wish you really, really continued success, and we'll be in touch to do more things. Okay.
Great. Thank you so much, Melissa Institute. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stay safe, stay healthy.
Thank you.
Yes, stay healthy.